All right, real quick.
Yeah.
We're gonna rank these albums all the way through. But before we do that, let's rank Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
That's a good question. Rank of the movements. Okay.
Rank the movements. I'm gonna do it real fast.
All right. You want me to do it off the cuff?
You can do it off the cuff. I'm gonna write it down.
All right. So for me, the Larks Tongues movements are Larks Tongues 3, Larks Tongues 4, Larks Tongues 2, Level 5, Larks Tongues 1.
So that's an order from least to most favorite?
Least to most. So 3 is least favorite, then 4,
Okay.
then 2, then Level 5, and then 1.
Okay, give me just a second. Let me put
Yeah,
this together. So I think Larks 2 is my favorite. Level 5 is second favorite. Part 3, Part 1, and Part 4. Okay, there's my list.
Wow.
Least favorite is Part 4. Second least favorite is Part 1, although I do love it. Third is Part 3. Second favorite is Level 5, and my favorite all-time Larks, Tongues, and Aspic part is Part 2.
Wow. Look at
Played
that.
by any band, but let me just start a fire in the comments section and say that my favorite recording of Larks, Tongues Part 2 is the Absent Lovers version.
No! I mean, that version is great.
Yeah, I like it as well as any 70s version. And I also rather enjoy their rendition of Red. I think more than any subsequent version of Red. Maybe not as much as the studio version, but I think that band, there's something special by the time you get to Montreal.
100%.
Which might be my favorite King Crimson record if we were considering live records, but we aren't. So I should have mentioned a long time ago that my notes have failed. That's why I haven't been using them.
Yeah, we kind of went off the rail, and that's fine.
But they wouldn't. Well, that's just King Crimson. It's the spirit of King Crimson. We've gloriously gone off the rails, and it was compelling. But no, the app is failing on my computer. I can't get it to open and stay open, so I'm having to read it off my phone.
Oh God!
Now that we have arbitrarily ranked the Larks, Tongues, and Aspic parts, just for fun, we are now going to submit our finalized ranking of the 12 King Crimson records. And the thing to know about this is, at least in my ranking, I was picking the ones that meant the most to me in my top. Like once you get past the 5 mark, they're all masterpieces is the thing. They're all wonderful records. And it was really just like a personal taste thing that got me to my number 1. But okay.
Number 13, Islands.
My least favorite King Crimson record. This is just an arduous task for me. I don't enjoy this record. It's the only one. It's the only one that I cannot find much to say about positively. It sounds tired.
Number 12, The Reconstruction of Light.
It's uneven. There's not enough relief for me on this record. It's kind of too much of one sort of thing.
Number 11, Thrack.
I find this the most dated of King Crimson records, aside from maybe Islands. And it's a disappointing album. It's fine on its own. But when compared to other King Crimson records, I think it doesn't come close. Still, there's a couple of good songs, but overall, not one of my favorites.
Number 10, In the Wake of Poseidon.
An album that actually through this process I have grown to appreciate a lot more. And I think it's a really strong album overall, and there's really not much I would change about it.
Number 9, Lizard.
Lizard is an album that's actually really strong, like very, very strong. It's the last few minutes of the record that kind of start to lose me. And I think because it doesn't stick the landing, it kind of leaves me with sort of a feeling of it's unfulfilling. I find Lizard unfulfilling in the end. But everything up until that point is great.
Number 8, The Power to Believe.
I think this is a really great album. And as I said a few minutes ago, it's a nice way to tie together all of the disparate eras of King Crimson. And if they end here, I'm happy. And it seems like they will. I think this is a strong one to go out on. And it's one that doesn't age. It doesn't sound like it's part of any era. Some of it you can kind of tell it's from 2003, but it's definitely the strongest of the latter series of records.
Number 6, 3 of a Perfect Pair.
This is a very well-rounded record, but it's lacking somewhat in its performance.
Number 7, Beat.
I may like 3 of a Perfect Pair better overall as an experience, but I think Beat is just stronger in performance and the writing to match. Especially the 5.1 version, the Steven Wilson remix. It's got the full version of Requiem and the Absent Lovers instrumental track. I think really helps to cement Beat as being a little bit better than 3 of a Perfect Pair. Tomorrow, my opinion may change.
Number 5, Starless and Bible Black.
This one actually raised up it bumped up a few notches in my ranking. I think that this is King Crimson as an improvisational force. As you had said earlier, they're listening to each other really well. And any album with the song Fracture on it is great. It's in the upper echelon as far as I'm concerned.
Number 4, Red.
Now, these next two are interchangeable. They're just about as good for me. But number 4 is Red. I think Red is all killer, no filler. There's nothing about this record that I would change. It's one that I reach for quite often. It has an energy to it that when I'm in a certain mood, there's nothing else like it.
Number 3, In the Court of the Crimson King.
This is just an all-time classic album. And I actually think Red might be a little bit better, specifically Providence, the improv. I would place it above Moonchild. But In the Court of the Crimson King is so iconic. And so I have to bump it up one notch, I think, at least today. Ask me tomorrow, it might be different.
Number 2, Larks Tongues in Aspic.
It's very nearly my number 1. This is a movie for your ears. It's a work of cinema is what it is. It's music as cinema. If you handed this to someone as their first King Crimson record, I think they would have a pretty good idea what this band is all about.
Number 1, Discipline.
Discipline just goes down a little bit easier. It's an album that, again, hasn't aged today. You put it on and it sounds like it could have been made yesterday. And most importantly, I think it's got replay value a little bit above Larks, Tongues, and Aspic and In the Court of the Crimson King. Both of those albums, and to a certain extent, 3 of a Perfect Pair, are records that I need to sit down and really absorb and let them wash over me. Whereas Discipline, I can enjoy while doing other things if I want to, but it still is textured enough that when I do sit down and listen to it as a piece of music, it works on that level too. And it's also the 80s band is my favorite. What can I say? I just think that they were wonderful. So, Mike, let's hear your list. What's your ranking?
Good list, Ian. All right. So my list, my number 13 is Islands. Islands is, for me, far away the weakest King Crimson album. It's the only one I would probably rate like below a 7. It's just, rather unfocused. It's quiet. It's tired. It's exhausting. It's got a couple of good songs, but really doesn't hold a candle to everything else in the catalog for me. Number 12 is The Construction of Light. I think, like Ian said, this is quite a bit of a step up from Islands, but it's still not quite as great as everything else. There's a couple songs I don't like, especially Oyster Soup. I think that is not a good song. It's just, has some great stuff going on. It's very complex, but it's a sort of salt. It's a sonically hits you over the head for an hour. It's way too long for that. And that's why it's so low on the ranking. Number 11 is Thrack. This is the biggest surprise personally for me. I used to love this record, but it's, As an album by itself, it's great. But as compared to the other King Crimson albums, it's just pretty okay. It's the most dated album in the catalog, and it's got a couple of good songs, but it's just too long. Number 10 is Three of a Perfect Pair. Another one that I used to love and has fallen quite a bit. I still think it's a great album. This is the point where the albums are really good to great, and everything above it is I just like more than that. There's a couple things on Three of a Perfect Pair I think are just okay. The performances are kind of cold. That's why it's down here at number 10. Number 9 is In the Wake of Poseidon. This is, I think, one of the most underrated albums in the catalog. I think it's great. It's got a lot going for it. It's different from Court. It's got a lot of merit. It's a fun album. I just like everything else better above it. Number 8 is Beat. The other album I would say is maybe the most underrated in the catalog. It slaps. It's a fun time. It's a really strong record. Great writing. It sounds good. Perfect for Pop Crimson. Number 7 is Lizard. This is the point where these are the albums that I really, truly love. And from Lizard up is a masterpiece in my eyes. Lizard is a wonderful experimental record. It's really jazzy, which is right up my alley. It's a real odd duck, and I love it for it. I just think if I have to be a little objective in my ranking, all the albums that are above this one are better. Number 6 is Discipline. This album is a masterpiece. It's timeless. It could have been recorded next week. It could have been recorded 30 years ago. It's incredible how this music sounds. It still sounds fresh and inviting. I just think I played it too much. It used to be like number 2, but I just played it too much for myself. And I think me as a listener lately has been gravitating more towards like an experience where I have to sit down and be washed by music rather than like music to do chores to, which Discipline can do both. But I just am gravitating towards more of the wash me in this. I have to be absorbed into this album now experience. Number 5 is Power to Believe. This surprised me. This album also sounds timeless, and it's not dated. It is a terrific capstone to an amazing career of music that Crimson has put together. I love it. I think it's an amazing record. It sounds great. It's got a lot of inventive material. It's heavy, and I like the heaviness in this one. It's far and away better than everything else in modern Crimson. It's great. Number 4 is Starless and Bible Black. I love the improv. This band is firing on all cylinders. The material is really strong. It's a great sounding album too. It's a ton of fun. And this is the one where every time you put this record on, you hear something different. There's something new to grab onto every time you hear it. And I love it for it. Number 3 is In the Court of the Crimson King. An incredibly important record for my life. There's not much more to say. I do think the reason it's not number 1 is because the Moonchild improv is not as strong, and the 2 above this one I just think are better albums, as great as this one is. The next 2, honestly, if you were to ask me tomorrow what my favorite Crimson album is, it might be this one, and my number 2 is Red. I just love this thing. It's very special to me. The music's amazing. It sounds massive. Sometimes I kind of want to cry when I listen to it because it's that emotionally arresting for me. It's a wonderful album. I love it to pieces. And number 1 is Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. I would consider this a bona fide masterpiece of an album. And maybe this might be the best album for me, like of all time, by anybody now. Yeah. It's just that good. And a truly special record that will wow you upon listening every time. Even after all these years of listening to this music, it still brings the wow factor. That's why it's my number 1.
Yeah, very, very well said. All right. Well, thank you for joining us and sticking it out for what I'm guessing is going to be kind of a long video because we talked a little bit longer than intended, but that's okay. It's been a lot of fun. Don't forget to comment with your ranking. We would love to hear from you how you feel about these King Crimson records. Which one is your least favorite? Which one is your favorite? And everything in between. Don't forget to also like this video we respond to enthusiasm, as a wise man once said. And don't forget also to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this, because Mike and I plan to do more things in this duo format. We intend to talk about Yes is Fragile at some point in the near future. And I think we're going to come back and do Zappa at the Whiskey with Jocko. I think that's still on the itinerary.
Docket.
Is there anything else you want to say to the folks at home before we sign off for the evening?
Yeah, please tell us your rankings and tell us which albums you think are the underrated ones or the dark horses in that catalog. We'd love to hear that.
Maybe you'll change our minds.
Yeah, who knows? Give us a good argument. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. And thank you again, Mike, for joining and doing this crazy long video with me.
Happy
this was
to
a lot
do
of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope it sounded all right.
You'll hear from us soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.